When it comes to hit animated feature films, you will most likely think of Disney. But were you aware of unproduced and cancelled animated Disney films that never saw the light of day? Well, today we will discuss the 15 unproduced/cancelled Disney animated films. Ever wonder what it would have been like if Disney made an animated Wizard of Oz movie based on L. Frank Baum's novel? Well, originally, The Wizard of Oz was Walt Disney's follow-up to Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, but the film rights were lost to Samuel Goldwyn, who originally intended to make it as a standard comedy musical, with Eddie Cantor as his star. However, Goldwyn ended up selling the rights to MGM in 1937, which eventually became the hit movie The Wizard of Oz in 1939. So, would you have wanted an animated Oz movie? Or are you people happy with what we got? In 1943, a sequel to the original Bambi film was planned, dealing with Bambi's adult life. But it was scrapped for unknown reasons. And a half a century later, we got Bambi 2, which was not well received by critics. Man, we could have gotten a Bambi sequel that could have been better than what we have now. But we can always dream. We can always dream. In 1943, Walt Disney planned a feature film about the Gremlins based on the novel by Ronald Dahl. Though shortly, the idea was scrapped for unknown reasons. They were going to make a short out of it too, but they didn't because the same year, Warner Brothers released a Bugs Bunny short called Falling Hair, which had a similar type of idea. But it wasn't a total loss. The Gremlins appear in the Epic Mickey franchise as tiny helpers of Mickey Mouse. So yeah. I guess they found a way to get the Gremlins out there through Disney. Well, Disney was going to make an animated movie about Don Quixote. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but yeah, Don Quixote is an old book that came out in the 1600s, really, really old. Disney planned to make a movie in 1941, but it was canceled. 1951, and it was canceled. Then all the way to 2001. They said that the 2001 version, which was more unique, it was going to have a more adult take. But like the other ones, it was scrapped. Well, I guess Don Quixote got the bad stick of things. Not only he had a problem with windmills coming to life, but I guess he had a problem getting his own movie onto the big screen with Disney. Musicana, 1980. An early version of what eventually became Fantasia 2000. Some of the segments that were planned in the film were to be titled Finlandia, involving a fight between the ice god and sun goddess, an African segment about a curious monkey and a rain god, including many hippos, lions, and elephants, the Emperor's Nightingale, based on the Andersen story, which would have starred Mickey Mouse as the keeper of a nightingale, a southern jazz story titled By the Bayou, which included many frogs, including caricatures of Ella Fitzgerald and Louis Armstrong. A segment set in Andreas with a beautiful girl/bird, and a version of Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves featuring tropical birds. It was cut due to financial issues in favor of The Fox and the Hound and The Black Cauldron. I think I'm happy with Fantasia 2000. What do you guys think? The Three Musketeers, 1983. Storyboard artists Steve Hollett and Pete Young developed the project with Mickey, Donald, Goofy, and Jose Quioxte as the Musketeers, but it fell into development hell. This project later eventually became the Three Musketeers in 2004, Mickey, Donald, and Goofy, but it didn't feature Jose like it was going to in the original concept. Where the Wild Things Are, 1983. Animators Glenn Keane and John Lasseter, who later moved on to Pixar, completed a test film blending traditionally animated characters with CGI settings, but the project proceeded no further. It was mostly because of the budget being too high. The closest thing we got was a live-action adaptation in 2009 that was released by Warner Brothers. Swabbies, 1989. The story found Mickey, Donald, and Goofy out of work, out of luck, and in need of a job. They enlist in the Navy and go to boot camp with Pete as their exasperated drill instructor. They meet their feminine counterparts, Minnie, Daisy, and Clarabelle, who are all waves. After they put to sea, they encounter a submarine full of the Beagle Boys, who all speak a Russian-sounding gibberish. The entire film was storyboarded and recorded, and an animac was created. Complete model sheets of all the characters were printed, and layouts and some animation has begun before the project came to an abrupt halt. What kind of movie this would have been? Sounds pretty awesome. What do you guys think? Where is Roger Rabbit? 1997. A sequel to the original Roger Rabbit film, planned as either a direct-to-video or theatrical feature film sequel. But little is known if it's possible the sequel was in development hell or just scrapped completely. But there was a little snippet of test animation that is only less than 12 seconds. A few directors pitched an idea for the sequel as well. The world may never know. Uncle Stiltskin, 2003. The story begins with the famous Brothers Grimm's tale. Rumpelstiltskin leaves off, and Uncle Stiltskin, the fabled aspiring baby napper Rumpelstiltskin, again tries to fulfill his dream of being a father, but this time, he discovers the true meaning of family. Never really said when this movie was going to be made, or if it was being made, or if it was just cancelled. Little known has any information about this movie. But here is a link in the description, if you're curious. Fraidy Cat, 2005. This proposed feature film was to have chronicled the life of a frightened cat who had already lost 3 of his 9 lives trapped in the Hitchcock escape plot, and came under development by Ron Clements and John Muskar. However, David Stanton, then president of Walt Disney Feature Animation, refused to greenlight the project. Fantasia, 2006. Also known as Fantasia 3, this would have been the 3rd film installment in the Fantasia series. Minnie, Pluto, and Goofy were going to join in one of these unknown segments, until the plans were eventually dropped altogether, and proposed segments from the abandoned film were instead produced and released as individual standalone Disney animated shorts. Oh, well, you look at that. Mort, 2011. This proposed, traditionally animated film would have been based on Terry Pratchett's Discworld novel of the same name. It would have been directed by John Muskar and Ron Clements, the directors of the 2009 film The Princess and the Frog. Disney could not afford the rights to the film, so it was scrapped. Like that. The Yellow Submarine remake, 2011. In August 2009, Variety reported that Walt Disney Pictures and director Robert Zemeckis were negotiating to produce a 3D computer animated remake of said film. Motion capture would be used, as with Zemeckis' previous animated films, The Polar Express, Beowulf, and A Christmas Carol. In May 2010, Disney closed Zemeckis' digital film studio, Image Movers Digital, after the successful yet unsatisfactory box office performance of A Christmas Carol. On the 14th of March 2011, Disney abandoned the project, citing the disastrous opening weekend results of Simon Wells' Mars Needs Moms. Criticism towards motion capture technology was also a factor. I guess it wasn't a total loss. I mean, how could you do that? Now, here are a few honorable mentions. And I saved the best for last. The Search for Mickey Mouse, 2002. In honor of Mickey Mouse's 75th anniversary, the project was about Mickey who gets kidnapped by unknown forces, forcing Minnie Mouse to enlist Basil of Baker Street to investigate his disappearance, and later encounters one character from Disney's animated film canon such as Alice, Peter Pan, Robin Hood, and Aladdin. However, the project suffered script problems, with the multiple cameos being thought to be too gimmicky. The project was replaced by Mickey, Donald, and Goofy, the Three Musketeers, which came out in 2004. Wow. We could have had the Kingdom Hearts then. That probably would have been the Kingdom Hearts of the day. Have any ideas for a top countdown? Subscribe for more. And like this video if you want to see more.